Follow the prophet. Follow the prophet. Follow the prophet.
Travis Wayne Goodsell. Just to give you a background into the history of modern day astronomy. First came Copernicus, but Galileo is the one we'll go to first. Di Francesco, I think, is the Book of Mormon video guy. I will not burn the book. He was an Italian astronomer, physicist, and engineer, sometimes described as a polymath. He invented the thermoscope and various military compasses, and used the telescope for scientific observation of celestial objects. His contributions to observational astronomy included the telescopic confirmation of the phases of Venus, the observation of the 4 largest satellites of Jupiter, the observation of Saturn's rings, and the analysis of sunspots. And so you'd think, hey, this guy is awesome. I'm sure the Catholic Church just loved him. And this is the whole point of the video. The Catholic Church saw astronomy and all fields of science as a threat to the Catholic Church. He was indefinitely detained as a terrorist, as a heretic. He spent the rest of his life under house arrest, and did manage to obtain paper from his cellmate, Easy, and published a couple of books, or wrote a couple of books, which technically, if you write them, you've automatically published them. You are the author. So Copernicus, Nicolaus Copernicus, was a Renaissance-era mathematician, astronomer, and Catholic clergyman. See, he was one of them. He was Catholic, a clergyman, but he used science, all the secret devil's work, and formulated the model of the universe as heliocentric. The Earth is the center of the universe, not the sun. But our sun isn't the center of the universe either, is it? It's the Milky Way galaxy for the galaxy, the sun for the solar system, etc., etc. But instead of being assassinated by the church, or instead of being locked up by the church, he was censored by the church. They condemned his books. There was one particular guy who loved to debate him. I believe his name was Kwaku. Did you see the video not too long ago about Kwaku getting exposed? He did an online debate and got his butt kicked over Troy. Tolosani, I believe it was. And so, why am I bringing this up? Is because astronomy was emerging as a hard science. People were developing star charts and figuring things out with Galileo's telescope invention, and obviously their knowledge continued on to others, even though the Catholic Church has notably gone on a rampage. But there's this book in the Bible that originally wasn't going to be put in, but in the end it did get put in. And in chapter 12, it says from the Mormon version of the King James Version of the Bible, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered." And then skipping down to verse 5, "And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne." They knew astronomy. They were Catholic. They had the Bible. They knew about the book of Revelation. They knew astronomy. When they read chapter 12, they go, "Hey, that's a sign in the heavens. I want to find out when it's going to occur." And of course, the Catholic Church suppressed it. "No, this is about Jesus being born during the Roman period." Are you sure? Well, yeah, if you deny science and deny astronomy, you murder people and lock them up and censor their work. Yeah, you get to cover up a whole lot of crime and sin, don't you? When you're the dominant religion of Utah, of the world. And so these guys were persecuted by the Catholic Church. And so is it any wonder then that Johann Adam Weishaupt, who formed the Illuminati, did so embracing Lucifer, which means light bearer, calling themselves Illuminati, illumination, and using science as their base of knowledge. And yet, because of the Catholic Church and the suppression, the oppression, the depression, all of those, the murders, the censorship, the locking up of people just because they're astronomers and scientists. They would not deny science when their lives were threatened by the Catholic Church. That they would then embrace Lucifer from the Latin Vulgate in Isaiah 14:12. "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer," using his inverted pentagram, symbol of falling stars, as their sign. And to use science to destroy nations and rebuild nations under a central bank, as they obtained a certain Rothschild, firstborn, to be the banker for the organization. And so as I'm doing these videos for you about the church and their involvement with the Illuminati, as the sign of the Illuminati, Lucifer, is all over Temple Square, the headquarters of the church, of Brigham Young's branch off. I've been trying to help you guys understand Albert Pike's letter to Giuseppe Mazzini. in which he said we're going to destroy the world in 3 phases, 3 world wars. The first 2 have already happened according to the letter, in accordance with the letter. The third one would destroy Christianity and then elevate the doctrine of Lucifer. And what they're doing is using science to destroy Christianity. But in order to do that, they have to convince Christians to be science deniers in order to effectively utilize science to destroy Christianity and religion. And so we've witnessed this. We had anti-vaxxers, we had anti-maskers, because of the distrust in the government. And during a coronavirus, people are dying rather than being safe. Our government leaders are purposely extorting us to infect ourselves, and if we're weak, we die. They knew the dates in Revelation, and so they orchestrated their plans to strike in accordance with the dates. They are purposely fulfilling their part of the prophecy on purpose, premeditated, planned centuries ago. This is a very long chess game that they've been playing, and they've got us in checkmate now. Because they knew the dates. And I've been telling you how they knew the dates. Book of Mormon reveals the secret, exposes them. It is a warning to us that this is their plans. But the Book of Mormon's encoded. And so the Illuminati Church of Lucifer assassinates the leader of the organization and his brother. Takes people into the desert in violation of the scripture in Matthew 24. If anybody says that the Lord is in the desert, don't follow him. Brigham Young, the Lord told me he is in the desert, follow me. Every single scripture of bad examples in the Book of Mormon and in Bible have been followed by Brighamites church and leaders thereof. They practice priestcraft, polygamy, they're filthy rich, neglecting the poor, murdering the saints, secret signs, secret words, loyalty oaths. They have got Mormons so brainwashed that they defend the church and its corruption and its crime and its sins with fallacy. Kwaku. And Mormons don't see it. Nelson takes away the high priest group. Only leaders become high priests now. Took away home teaching so that during this pandemic There's no phone tree communication. Change the temple text for the law of chastity to allow for polygamy again. Presented an idol god as the logo for the church. Placing the statue of Jesus on top of the church. Not side by side, because that's the way it should have been. It's in the church, and then next to it, the little statue of Jesus. And call that whole thing the cornerstone. And they would have been fine. But nope. Jesus is on top. Jesus is built on top of the church. We create our God for Mormons. And Mormons miss it. And then the Christmas devotional. Our God is Venus, from an incorrect interpretation of Revelation. Bright morning star. He's referring to the sun, but everybody assumes it's Venus, so they get confused. Oh, it's different from Isaiah. And he helps spread and escalate the virus. And we were told by Joseph Smith that that was the weapon they were going to use. And so when it emerges, the press all read from their prompters, from somebody else telling them from above to what to read. And they get certain guesses. And they run certain scientific tests. Oh yeah, it came from a bat. It wasn't created in a lab. But again, it doesn't explain why all leaders around the world purposely spread and escalated the virus. And in particular, why a certain South Korean Christian fundamentalist religion, whose primary book is the Book of Revelation, what they're doing at the hotspot in China, and then are from that hotspot taking trips around the world. If you're gonna fool people with the manufacturing of a virus that will be unique and difficult to control, difficult to find a vaccine for, you don't do it in a lab, because people will be able to identify that it was made in a lab. What you do is you infect bats with the virus and then release the bats back out into nature, and then they get sold at the marketplace. So there's a distancing from the scientists and people getting infected from the bats. And isn't it interesting that it's a coronavirus? Corona means crown. Crowns are worn by kings. The king virus. But I've been talking about this the whole time. We have a national executive who's a germaphobe, doesn't like touching people, shaking hands, and then all of a sudden this virus comes out in China, and we find out had been in contact, knew about it, knew that it was serious, knew that it wasn't like the flu. And all of a sudden he wants to shake people's hands and get close to other people, and he's no longer a germaphobe. He's cured himself of germophobia. Uh-huh. He wants to kiss people after he got infected himself with the miracle recovery. Even said he was cured. And there's no press that's pursuing what really happened. Galileo developed the scientific method, and nobody's following it. As the signs in the heavens are happening, as well as the events on earth by the villains in the story. Their sole purpose is to destroy the belief systems of religion, because they all believe there's a second coming. Gospel Lessons just did a video last night about the great earthquake for the second coming. Second coming? I've already gone over that. Astronomy tells us there was no first coming. They knew this. They are using it against religion to destroy, because they know there will be no supernatural deity coming from outer space, flying on a horse, to destroy them. Who's going to stop them? They run the world. They've had these last couple centuries to prepare and plan, to work their way up through infiltration, rising into influence, rising into positions of authority and power and trust, and then taking over government, religion. And so is it any wonder that Nelson is helping to this end, to destroy America, to get every one of us infected, so that we are compromised, in need of a vaccine for our lives and the lives of our loved ones and our families. And they're taking casualties. Renland, it's day 15. That means he's severe. He's a medical doctor. He knew better. And yet, he was perpetuating the fraud that this is some minor thing. It's just, we just have to wait. And so when he gets hospitalized from his hospital bed, he tweets out, "The first presidency has announced that phase 3 of the temples is proceeding." We're escalating in coronavirus, and you yourself just got hospitalized as you were wearing a mask to church where you got infected. And you're telling us that we should then continue to expose ourselves to the risk of getting infected and potentially dying and being hospitalized like you? And you call yourself a medical doctor? Seriously? Nelson's a medical doctor too. But he cares. He held 2 coronavirus fasts to cure it. And then when those didn't work, he then came out with a video saying, "Oh, gratitude will heal coronavirus. The healing power of gratitude." They're scientists, medical doctors, scientists. And yet they're lying and deceiving about the seriousness of the viral pandemic. They are not doing what people would do during a viral pandemic. And he's not following the example of Moses, who also experienced a pandemic, or it wasn't a pandemic if it's just in Egypt, an epidemic, I guess, but a virus, an outbreak in Egypt. Nelson's not even following the example of scriptural prophets, as he himself is supposed to be in the office of Moses as the president of the church. Section 107. They know. They all knew. They all prepared. They all set things in motion. And so now it's been implemented. And people are losing hope. People are losing faith. People are even claiming, if I die, it's the will of God. They're cursing God and dying. All according to biblical prophecy, scriptural prophecy. So, just something to think about, to give you a bigger understanding of how it's going about. That this isn't God's hand causing all this. This is man. And they're purposely mocking God and the scriptures to fulfill scripture, to mock it, because they know there is no Christ who will come from outer space to save humanity. That's why the Smiths tried to teach through code about the true Messiah.